screen, but you guys look at the screen. Hopefully I'll be synced with how Jenny's playing it. And then Doris is going to do some interactive exploration game type activities. And then Emma's going to finish with a short hip ATM. So that's us. All right. Okay, Jenny, you just go back to the start and then we've got to sync it, that's all. You on 2 seconds? 0 seconds, all right. Okay. We're ready? Oh, do you want to go back and start again? Okay. Right, so the hip joint, you can start it if you want, is a true ball and socket joint. And I've got to just sync these two because I need to see. All right, ready, set, go. Okay, so the hip joint's a true ball and socket joint, the other one in the body being the shoulder joint. So this arrangement allows for a wide range of movement for daily activities like walking, squatting and climbing stairs. It's really important. Oh, we lost it already? Okay.
There it is. There it is.
Okay. Let's just go back to the start. Take 2, déjà vu. Hang on. I don't know. I might just have to look at the screen. I didn't want to look at that screen.
Socket.
Okay, radio. Yeah. Ready. So the ball and socket. So it's really important to understand how the different layers of the hip are arranged and are connected in order to help understand how it works, how it's injured. Sorry, now I'm off sync. And how challenging recovery can be. Sorry. So the deepest layers of the hip include the bones and joints. So I'm just got to wait till I sync again because I'm out of sync. And the next layers are the ligaments of the joint capsule. And these are finally covered by, oh, look, sorry, I'm sorry. This isn't going to work, Jenny. I don't think that doesn't work with that. So I'm going to have to look at this. Should we just start again or are you guys right? Okay, so the main bones of the hip are the femur or the thigh bone, the pelvis, and the top of the end of the femur is shaped like a ball. And this ball is called the femoral head, which fits into the round socket on the pelvis called the acetabulum. Now the femoral head's attached to the femur by a short section of neck called the femoral, short section of bone called the femoral neck. And then there's a large part of bone that juts out at the side called the greater trochanter. And that's where a lot of important muscles and ligaments are attached here. In the hip joint, we have articular cartilage, which is a material that covers the end of the bone of any joint. In the hip joint or large weight-bearing joints, it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. And it's white and shiny, and this allows for sliding without damage. So basically its function is to absorb shock. And it's everywhere where there's 2 bony surfaces that move against each other. And in the hip joint, as you can see there, articular cartilage covers the end of the femur, so the head of the femur, and the socket part of the acetabulum and the pelvis. And it's especially thick in that upper back part of the pelvis, as you can see, because that's where most of the heavy forces occur when we're walking and running. So there's a number of ligaments in the hip, and these are soft tissue structures that connect bones to bones. There's several important ligaments in and around the hip. In particular, there's what's called the joint capsule, and that's a watertight sac surrounding the joint. And the ligaments here connect the top of the femur to the acetabulum So they're a main source of stability in the hip. They hold the femoral head in place in the acetabulum. Now there's a small ligament that connects the tip of the femoral head to the acetabulum, and that's called the Ligamentum Teres. And here there's also a small artery that brings blood supply to the femoral head, which you can see there. And there's a number of tendons, which are soft tissue structures connecting muscle to bone. And there's a long tendon that runs alongside the femur from the hip to the knee, the iliotibial band. And this, again, is a connection point for large muscles. And when that's tight, you can get hip or knee problems. There's a special type of tendon that provides a unique structure inside the hip. And this, as you can see in a moment, is called the labrum. So it's attached around the edge of the acetabulum or the socket, and it creates a deeper cut for the socket for the femoral head to fit in. And when that's injured, you can get pain and clicking in the hip. Now there's a large number of thick muscles that surround the hip joint. And the ones that make up the buttocks or the back of the hip are the gluteal muscles. We've got the gluteus minimus, medius, and maximus. And their function is to extend or pull the thigh backwards, to abduct, so pull the thigh away or one leg away from the other. And they're also important to keep the pelvis level as we shift weight from one leg to the other, as in walking. On the inner thigh, there's the adductor muscles, so their main action is to adduct, so pull one leg towards the other. Then we've got a group of muscles in front of the hip joint, which are called the hip flexors, the iliopsoas and the rectus femoris. Now the iliopsoas is quite a deep muscle, attaches to the lower spine, travels out of the pelvis to attach on the inside edge of the upper femur. Then the rectus femoris, which is one of the quadricep muscles, which is a large group of muscles in front of the thigh. And then there's a small thin strap-like muscle called the sartorius, running from the pelvis across the knee and connecting to the upper tibia just below the knee joint. Now we've got external rotators of the hip. These help stabilize the hip joint. And as you'll see in a moment, they rotate the leg outwards. So you've got an external rotation. And then finally, we've got the hamstrings, which run down the back of the thigh, crossing across the hip joint on the way to the knee. And they function to extend the leg backwards. So there's a really large number of muscles that affect the hip joint. Now, all the nerves that travel down the thigh pass by the hip. In the front, we've got the femoral nerve. In the back, the sciatic nerve. And then there's a small nerve right inside the hip called the obturator nerve. Can you just pause that, Jenny, please? So this carries signals from the brain to the muscles to move the hip joint, and then from the hip joint back to the brain about sensations such as touch, pain, and temperature. Can you forward that to 8 minutes, Jenny? Yep. So where there's friction between muscles, tendons, and bones, there's usually a structure called a bursa. And this is a thin sac of fluid-filled tissue that basically serves to lubricate an area and reduce friction. And it's a normal structure produced by the body in response to friction between two surfaces or structures. In the hip, there's three main bursas. There's one at the greater trochanter, which you'll see in a moment on the side of the hip, between the greater trochanter and the muscles and tendons that cross over there. And that can get irritated and inflamed, and then it's greater trochanteric bursitis. There's another bursa between the iliopsoas muscle and the hip joint, where the iliopsoas tendon passes in front of the hip joint. So you can see that little white bit there. And that can also become inflamed and create bursitis. And then the last one is what we've been doing a bit of this week on our sit bones, or ischial tuberosity. And that can get inflamed if you don't have a lot of padding there. I've had that before. It's quite painful. So you can see the hip joint's quite a complex joint. It's designed to provide a good amount of stability as well as mobility and range of motion. And as we looked at, there's many powerful muscles that connect to and cross by the hip joint, which allow us to do actions like accelerating and running and jumping. Now, Jenny, there's an attachment I sent you. Just to know that there's a lot of variation on physical anatomical structures between each person. I'm just going to show you a few pictures just to have a quick look at that show, like, say you want to do something like squatting, as some people can squat really wide and some can squat narrow and some can't do one or the other. And that can be influenced by differences in the length of the femur, the orientation of the femoral head, how the orientation of the socket and the pelvis. So now we do our hips. So you're going to open. Okay, so just flick through. So you can see here the two different femurs. The orientation of the femoral head is quite different. And then this... I don't know if there's a gender difference there. There probably would be because the pelvis is different. So if you can scroll down, Jenny, you can see on the next one how the femoral head on the left, like the neck is a lot longer than the one on the right. Yeah, don't know. Yeah, colour variation. So just keep scrolling now. I won't spend long on this because the other guys have got stuff to do, but just to show you that. So look at the difference in the femoral head here and the neck and the orientation. So if you've got someone who's got it oriented this way or this way, you're going to get quite a different ability to do different kind of squat. And then with the pelvis, this is kind of more showing also the size. You can see the size of the acetabulum on the pelvis. They're quite different. And another pelvis here. So this one is quite interesting, the orientation of the acetabulum. So the socket part, as some people are a bit more forward and some are out more to the side, which would then change the shape of the femoral head. So the structure varies between each person a lot. So, you know, what we can do with one person, you might not be able to do with another. So that's the end of the anatomy presentation, and there's no time for questions because it's Friday afternoon. So I'll hand over to Doris, who's going to wake us up a bit.
Is this how you put it on? Is it testing? Testing? Am I on? Okay, good. I'm going to invite you to play a game, and I have some props. I'll need you to form partners, pairs, with someone who's roughly your height. And if there's more than 22 of us, then somebody might have to go in a threesome, because I used to have 12, but my dog ate one. Yes. Can I get you to give everyone a ball and pass them around, pass them around? So in this game, I borrowed this game from a movement workshop by Fighting Monkey. One per pair, one per group. No, actually, you don't want mats because you might trip over. So you might want the carpet, just a bit of spare space, empty space. You can go on the mats, but just don't trip over them. Everyone got a No, Sue, don't do that. Sue, stop it. It might fall out of its, you might lose it out of its thing. Thank you. Anyone? Okay, so anyone not got one? I'm going to be inviting you to do some noticing of your hip joints while you do the movements, while you do the game. And I invite your noticing to be of a light-hearted and playful nature, as opposed to the very serious and solemn noticing that I've been doing all this week. Now, one of you is going to be the ball handler, and one of you is going to be the mover. So decide who's going to go first, and then we'll swap. And person who's the ball handler, hold your ball up by its string near the face and at the level of the face. That's why you have to be tall. And you may have to hold it halfway up the string, obviously. And just start making a gentle movement of the ball. And the mover, follow with your eyes the movement of the ball. And as you get used to this, you can actually touch your mover with the ball, just gently on the face, just so they get used to the idea of the contact. So get a bit closer if you need to. Just go a bit closer. So you're just moving the ball in a gentle, random pattern of your choosing. It can be circular, left and right. It can be infinity shapes. The shape of the movement can be anything you like. Now, when you're used to following, when the mover's used to following the ball with their eyes, and you've got comfortable with each other, make sure that there's a little bit of a touch to the face, or just so you experience the ball against your face, against the mover's face. And then move closer to each other so that the mover now has to dodge the ball. So you're now trying to not be touched by the ball. So ball handler is wiggling the ball around, and mover is dodging and moving their head left and right, or to avoid being hit. You can move your body anywhere you like. You can move your feet. You don't have to have your feet glued to the ground. That's it. A bit more dodging. And you'll be noticing that your mover may be tempted to move into their habitual movement patterns. And using your skills as a ball handler, you could perhaps invite them into some movement patterns they haven't yet tried. Now, once you're comfortable with the head level, move your ball at chest level, like this. Let go. You're doing it wrong. Move out of the way. That's it. Bit more dynamic. Here we go. And you can move your feet. You can't run away, but you can move your feet. And you can even squat down, crouch down, whatever you like. Experience your hips. Feel into your hips. Where's all your abduction and your adduction? Are you internally rotating? Are you flexing and extending? No, sorry, you no longer need to keep your eyes on the ball. You can now keep your eyes wherever you like. And I'll just interfere for a second and make Jane work a bit harder. Yeah, that's it. And ball handlers, observe your mover, because you want to be in that sweet spot between asking too little of them and they're getting bored, versus asking too much of them and they're getting anxious and stressed out. So you want to find that sweet spot where the challenge is just right. And you can move the ball down to hip level now. And I'm not seeing anyone do cartwheels yet, but you can. Remember to experience your hips. And remember to invite your mover into non-habitual ways of evading you. If you're feeling very adventurous, you can now take the ball down to foot level and make them hop over the string. But only if you're feeling very adventurous. And if you're feeling less adventurous, you can go back to head level or variations. Don't let them know what you're doing next. Oh, wow. Nice one. Remember to invite them into their non-habitual leg, Gloria. And now swap partners. You can start with the head and then go to the chest level and then go to the hip level and then foot. Yeah. You can start quite gently, let them get used to it. And then up the ante. Then try not to make your mover go too dizzy. Well, he just whacks you with the ball. You're not noticing your hips, Sue. No, we're head, then chest, then wherever you like. Be unpredictable. And notice not only your hips, but notice what parts of you are supporting your hip movements. Okay. I will. What happened? Oh. That'll teach you. Okay. Well, since it is Friday afternoon, I'm going to have to wind things down. Come to a gentle pause in the proceedings and notice your hips and feel into yourselves and feel if they're now enlivened and feeling happy. And I will hand you over to the fair Emma. Hello.
Oh. Okay, so it's time for the ATM. Very active.
No. Oh, if you'd like to do it. So this is an ATM that I've modified from the Alexandriani set of lessons. And it looked like an appropriate lesson because the name of it is Getting to Know Your Hip Joints. So I thought, well, I'll do that one. But it is a condensed version. So we're going to start this ATM sitting up. So just find a place to sit. And you can either do this cross-legged or you can find a chair, but I'm sure most of you are able to do this cross-legged. So try one leg in front of the other, and then try the other leg in front of that one. And what's more comfortable for you? Is there a difference there between having one leg in front of the other? And in either position, how would you rate your comfort? 20, 100? And where does your attention go in this kind of sitting? Are you familiar with your sitting bones? You should be after this week. Those two bony places at the bottom of your pelvis. Can you feel both sitting bones in the way you are sitting? Or perhaps more one than the other? Perhaps they feel symmetrical? Or maybe uneven? And however you're sitting, take a moment to arch your back and round your back. So it's as if you bring the back of your pelvis forwards and let that echo up through your spine, and then take it backwards. And again, let the spine respond. And for most people, as you take the top of the pelvis backwards, you slump forwards a little. And as you arch your back, taking the back of the pelvis forwards, then you'll find that you do something more like what people think of as sitting up straight. So arch and round. And how much movement do you have there? How much comfort? How many possibilities? And when you've done this for a little while, leave it and come and lie on your back. So lie with your legs long. And sense how much of your back is against the floor. Pay particular attention to the arch at the back of your waist. Is that arch particularly high at the moment? Or is it very flat to the floor? And can you even discern a little bit of a difference between the right side and the left side? And what about the arch at the back of your neck? How far is the back of the neck from the floor? Take a hand or both hands and slide them under your neck and out Not looking to move your neck, but to leave the neck still and just slide the hands in and feel how much room there is there. And then do the same at the back of your waist. Quite possibly you'll only need one hand here. And see how much space is behind your waist. And then let your hands come back to by your sides. And notice how much of a gap there is at the back of your knees. The right knee, the left knee. How much space is there? And now please bend both knees and stand both feet. Of course, this will have affected how your back rests against the floor. Maybe the back of the waist has moved a little bit. Maybe even the back of the neck. And now bring your right knee over your chest and bring both hands around the right knee. And as if this was a really lazy, easy movement that doesn't take much effort, just bring the knee towards your chest and then let it return. The idea is that you keep both hands around the knee, so you don't let it go away from the chest so far that you have to let go of your hands. So you keep your hands around your knee and you pull the knee in towards your chest, lightly, softly, easily, and then let it return. And as you do this, observe what is happening in your pelvis. Is there some movement there? Would you say that the top of the back of the pelvis moves a little bit? Maybe towards the floor sometimes? Maybe away from the floor? And if the pelvis is moving, then maybe the spine is moving, or the back of the neck is moving. Just search for any echoes of movement that come up through the spine. What do you find? And now pause with your knee and think through for a moment how, as you bring your knee inwards, the back of your waist goes a little towards the floor. And as you take the knee away from your chest, the back of the waist arches. And then begin to think about, and then to do, a movement where you do the opposite. So as you pull your knee towards your chest, you arch the back of your waist. You take the top of the pelvis forwards. And then as you let the knee go away from your chest, you let the back of the waist come back to neutral. Think about it and then do it. Do it several times. So as you pull the knee to the chest, you arch the back of the waist. You take it away from the floor. And then as the knee goes away from the chest, you let the back of the waist come back to neutral. And notice as you do this, how do you make it possible to do something that goes against the grain? Are there places where you have to try very hard? What's your breath doing? What is the inside of your mouth like right now? Is your tongue soft? Are your teeth a little apart? And then when you've done this a few times, leave it, let your leg down, and let the other leg down too, and rest. Sometimes when we do something like this, just on the one side, you have the opportunity to sense what difference that has made. Is there something different now about your right leg compared with your left? And now bend both knees again. And this time, bring the left knee over your chest and bring your hands around the left knee, holding the knee, and again start to pull the knee towards your chest and away from your chest. And again, you're looking for a movement that's really easy and simple. And perhaps now on this side, it becomes clearer what happens with the pelvis. And as you move the knee and allow the pelvis to respond in its normal way, notice what's happening with your head. Is there some movement there against the floor? Maybe your chin is rising a bit and lowering a bit. Maybe the arch at the back of your neck is changing. And then come to a neutral place, holding the knee, and begin to think about doing the movement in the other way. So as the knee comes in, the back of the waist goes away from the floor, and as the knee goes away from the chest, the back of the waist comes back to the floor. Think it through a couple of times, and then when you're ready, start to do the movement. Is it possible to do it really easily, smoothly, like it was nothing, like it was really easy, like there's nothing unusual about this? So as the knee comes towards the chest, the back of the waist goes forward and makes a big arch at the back of the waist. And as the knee goes away from the chest, the arch comes back to neutral. And how does this movement affect the arch at the back of your neck? And again, you're breathing. How is your breathing? Was it perhaps easier on this side? And then when you've done the one you're doing, leave it and let your leg down and rest. How is your left leg now? And when you're ready again, bend both knees, stand both feet. And this time, bring your right foot up onto your left knee. The foot will rest on the outside of the ankle, just a little bit above the knee. And then in this place, keeping the ankle of the right foot and the left knee, keeping them in touch, just lift and lower your right knee a few times. Lift it away from its starting position, which of course means as it lifts, it makes an arc in the air and comes in towards your center line. And then let it lower to whatever place feels comfortable. Don't push it down, just allow it to come down. Lift it again and lower it. Sense what happens in your right hip as you do this. Is there anything happening in the pelvis? And then leave the knees still and bring your hands to your lower right leg. So place your right hand on your right knee and your left hand on your right ankle. And holding the leg, arch your back and then let your back return to the floor a few times. So arch your back and then return. And then as you begin to arch your back, pull the knee towards you and pull the ankle towards you as well. So you lift the right ankle off your left knee and you pull the whole lower right leg towards you as you arch your back and then let it back. And do this a few times. And when you've done it a few times, leave it and let your legs down, straighten your legs and rest. And now bend your knees again, and no surprises, we'll be doing the other side. So bring your left ankle up onto your right knee, and a few times arch and flatten your back. Once you've done that a few times, leave the back still, and then swing the left knee up a little bit and inwards towards your center line, and then back down, making sure that you leave the ankle attached to your right leg. You may find that the range on this side is different to your right side. And then bring both hands to your lower left leg and place your right hand on your left ankle and your left hand on your left knee. And again, arch your back and return your back to the floor. Do that a couple of times. Once you've done this a couple of times, start to bring or lift the leg towards your chest as you arch and return it as your back returns. Notice if it's possible to lift the left knee and the left ankle equally. It may just be a very small movement. What we're doing here is not about the exercise, but it's about how do we organize this? How do we get the brain into that place where we can allow the knee to come towards the chest at the same time as we arch the pelvis? And then finish the one you're doing and let your legs down, let your arms down, lengthen your legs and rest. And now please roll to your side and come up to sitting. And if you can again sit in that cross-legged position, just take a moment to sit there. And how does that feel now? Do you feel your sitting bones? And in that position, just arch and round your back a few times, noticing if the movement there has changed. Once you've done that a few times, come back to stillness and just see how it is to sit. And hopefully that's a nice place for you to start your weekend.